It is Thursday night. How about those 49ers? Are they going to be trading Brandon Aiyuk anytime soon? How about Trey Lance? What's going on there? Do the 49ers still have faith in him? We're going to talk about all that and more on tonight's 49ers Roundtable. Hey, it is Thursday night, and this is the second edition of the 49ers Roundtable. And as you can see, got a whole new group of guests here on Inside the Flyers. And let's just go from my left, I guess it is, to everybody looking around the horn. We got Johnny Dell. Johnny, how you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Glad to be here. For those who don't know, I only live about 25 miles from those horrible storms that everybody read about that went through Mississippi. So I'm glad to be here. Know some people who lost houses, and it was scary that night, but glad to be here talking 49ers.
Hey, glad you're doing okay. I my son is a big meteorology guy, and he was telling me about it last night. I'd heard more about it, but he knows all the meteorology stuff about it. But he was telling me all about the storm last night when we were together. CG, how you doing?
Doing great, man. I'm excited to be here. Let's go. Let's get it.
Let's go. And then right below me there's big Sterling Bennett. Hey, Sterling, how you doing?
I'm doing great. The intro got me feeling like I was watching Monday Night Raw from like 2002, so I'm pumped up, ready to go.
Hey, it's between the intro and CG's voice. CG, I think, if we just stop this right now, he could do a wrestling intro for us like nobody's business. He's got the voice for it.
Yes, sir. I mean, wrestling's another type of topic I go into, but we're going with the Niners thing. We can go anyway, man.
There you go. Real quick, want to shout out a couple folks over in the comment section. Then we're going to get this thing kicked off with our first topic of the night. We got Kid Icarus. Darnold already is QB2. Okay, you're right. We'll see where he ends up. We also have Niner Mania 99. Think he does get moved on draft day. Sorry, but we can't pay the fifth-year option for the number 4 wide receiver on the team. Brandon Aiyuk is very valuable, but at the end of the day, more touches for others. That's definitely one of the things that we're going to get into tonight. We got the backyard blitz in the house as well, and then this is my guy right here. Luke Wall says, hi, everybody. The only reason I say that, Luke has been over at the Inside the Flyers blog longer than me. I started commenting over there around 2011, and Luke was already he's one of the Hall of Famers over there. So every time he's joins the show, I always want to make sure I shout him out. So good to have Luke in the house tonight with us. Let's go ahead. Let's get into it. Number one, we're going to do something similar to what we did last week on the show. Works out well in this format. It's buy or sell. So we're going to give you guys a statement, and then based off of that statement, we're going to go around the horn, and we're going to either buy it if we agree, and we're going to sell it if we disagree. And the first one, this guy made a little bit of news last year around this time, a little bit later on, but during the offseason. Javon Kinlaw. Are the 49ers done with Javon Kinlaw? Johnny?
I'm going to sell. I don't think they are done with Javon Kinlaw. I know about the Javon Hargrave signing, but if you look at it, I really think that Kinlaw is a guy that they're hoping makes another step next year and will take over for Eric Armstead going down the pipeline. It's just he's been a guy that his ability hasn't been much of a question. It's been more availability, and so. How's the knee bounce back this year? Can he work well in a rotational role? I don't think they're ready to give up on him. And plus, they don't gain anything from him for cutting him this year. So he's a guy that he's going to be on the team this year. He's going to get another chance to prove himself. And if he can solidify himself, then they're looking at Hargrave and Kinlaw as the duo down the middle, which is something that if you're a 49ers fan, that's what you hope for. That's what you want to have happen. That is what is the best case scenario for us. Armstead isn't the youngest guy on the defensive line. And so you want to see those two guys as your interior defensive line going forward. Now he's got to prove himself, but I don't believe that the 49ers are ready to give up on him.
There you go. CG.
Well, I'm going to buy into it because they didn't pick up the fifth-year option. Signing Javon Hargrave kind of just gave me the indication that at this point they are going to move on, but not this season because he's on our cap. So I think they're just going to try to play it safe with him and let it be. But I don't see much of him going forward. He's a liability. So he does have to prove it this year, or else he's pretty much gone next year. So I'm not saying he's gone this year, but the following year he will be.
Okay. Sterling, how about you?
I am going to sell at least for this season. I think San Francisco knows they made a mistake in trading DeForest Buckner. They brought in Hargrave to kind of make that a gigantic wash of say, hey, look, we're going Armstead and Hargrave up the middle this year. But you can look at the interior, there is no one else behind them. It's just really Javon Kinlaw, and that's it. So I do think that they see some upside, albeit it's going to be hard to find with those bad knees of his, unfortunately. But I do think they're going to actually need Javon Kinlaw this year just to be a depth piece. Now, can he do that? I don't know. Maybe in a year or so he's gone. But this year alone, I do not think Javon Kinlaw is going to be, or the Niners are done with Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I agree with Johnny on this one. And I kind of CG was kind of in between. I don't think that the Niners are done with Javon Kinlaw. They're gonna get everything they can out of him. In terms of him being a starter, I think the Niners are done with him. He's not going to start for them this year, but they're going to look to him to try to get as much out of him as they can. There's no benefit for right now for them to do anything with him. So I think he's going to be here going into 2023. He'll use him as a depth piece. And who knows, maybe they'll get the best of Javon Kinlaw here because this is it for him. He's playing for his next contract, and this is typically when guys do their best. All right, so you guys can always jump in after I'm done. You can tell me I'm full of beans if you want to. I don't have a problem with that at all. So let's get on to the next one. Let me take a look over here. Let me see what we got coming up. And we got the draft coming about a month from now, right? I think a month from today. We're in day one of the NFL draft. We'll be just sitting there doing nothing because the 49ers don't have a pick. Or do they? The 49ers are trading up in the draft, CG?
Well, if they're going to trade up in the draft, I don't know. It's like it's hard for me to really buy into them moving up in the draft. Are they going to play it safe? The only option I see with the Niners moving up in the draft is maybe if they're very high on a certain prospect, but I don't see them moving very highly. Maybe, but I'm going to buy because maybe there's a prospect they definitely want to get in the mid third round or early third round. So there might be a tackle, a safety. I can see them move up there.
Okay. What do you think, Sterling?
Yeah, I think when you look at what San Francisco has done the past couple of seasons, they've been kind of taking the Rams motto of not really F them picks, but they've been ultra aggressive of signing Javon Hargrave, where many of us thought they were not going to go out and get a big name on the interior, or trading for Christian McCaffrey, even trading up for Trey Lance, which we'll get into later, obviously. But I do think they are going to be aggressive, and I do think it helps the fact that the prospects or the area in which they have needs, especially right tackle probably being the number one, that prospect group is not deep this year. And I do think if you want someone like a Blake Freeland that's been talked about over and over and over again amongst Niners Twitter and Niner fans, you are going to likely have to move up for him. Like guys like Darnell Wright are not going to be there in the third round. They're going to be gone probably in the first, if not early second. So I do think if they find a right tackle they are in love with, I do think they are going to have to move up. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they did trade down. They have a cluster of picks in that third round, and they got a big gap in between them. So I would not be surprised if they moved down to then eventually move back up in the fifth round, fourth round, trying to maneuver their way into getting maybe 8 solid picks instead of 5 good picks and then 3 and we'll figure things out later. So I do think they're going to move up, but that might not just be to get a tackle in the early third round or in the second. I do think it might be later on in the draft to sneak back into the fourth.
Okay. So not in the first, but not in the beginning, but a little bit more in the middle. I get you there. What about you, Johnny?
Well, I am I think the 49ers are going to trade up in this draft. And the reason why, I think what they've done in free agency showed me that more than anything, as far as they started picking up some role player type guys. They weren't picking up a ton of starters outside of obviously Hargrave, but they were filling in their roster. And to me, that says they're not planning on using all of their picks in this draft. They have a lot of picks in this draft, and they have a lot of later round picks in this draft. And they like to redshirt guys to be starters. So to me, that says they don't. I just don't see a space for their entire draft class as it stands right now to actually make this roster. And so if you're wasting picks on guys that won't make the roster, that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't seem to fit what they do. Now, I don't think they're going to move all the way up into the first round. I don't think they have the ammo to get all the way up in the first round. I think maybe late second might be in somewhere they go for. And there's a guy, I went to the Senior Bowl that I saw there that I didn't know anything about him before he got there. And I've been kind of pounding the table on my shows for him. Sidney Brown, a safety from Illinois. I want Sidney Brown. And that fits what the 49ers do. I think he's going to be in that range. I think before the Senior Bowl, he was looking at maybe mid-third. But since then, I think his performance at the Combine, his performance at the Senior Bowl has elevated him maybe into that late second round. But he's a guy that you can do just like Talanoa Hufanga. You can redshirt him his first year, have him in that third safety role, and then he will be the starter for Tayshaun Gibson. I don't think Gibson's here past this season, and that fits what the 49ers do. I think their answer at right tackle is Colton McKivitz. I think they drafted him last year knowing that McGlinchey was going to be moving on. I think their answer for edge is Drake Jackson, because I think they were planning on Samson Ebukam moving on. They tend to draft starters a year out, and so a guy like Sidney Brown makes total sense. And physically, he reminds you, when you see him on the field, he reminds you a lot of Talanoa Hufanga. A lot. It was kind of crazy. And I would say he was the guy that jumped out to me first at the Senior Bowl and last. Really, really impressive that whole week. And that was there, was probably one of the best DBs, not just safeties, DBs in man coverage that I saw there at the Senior Bowl. He was able to cover receivers as well as the corners were. Really good athleticism and change of direction, and was a smart guy on the field. So I would love to see the 49ers move up and get him. And if they do, you're going to have one happy Johnny Dell over here. So
there you go. I love it. I think the safety is something that the 49ers definitely need. When you look at where they are, that's one of their biggest, because they don't have, like you said, Tayshaun Gibson isn't coming back. I don't think he'll be here in 2024. So it makes sense to get that guy now. Get him get him in here, get him used to everything that's going on, and you move off of Gibson after the season, and you have a guy that can slide right in, just like you said with Talanoa Hufanga. Makes a ton of sense. This is a statement that I've gone back and forth on about the 49ers trading up. I do think that there's a possibility that they can make a move up somewhere into the third round. I don't think they can really get up out of round number 3 unless they trade a player or trade future picks, because the trade chart values on third rounds, especially where they are in the third round for the 49ers, which is really, according to the value chart, is really a fourth rounders, right? I don't know how high they can jump. So if they can get a guy like Brown in early in round 3, or maybe they trade a player even to help get up, I think that's the only other way that they trade up past round number 3, is if they trade a player. And there's a quarterback on their team that they might be able to trade. We'll get into that guy a little bit later. That we'll see what happens there. So I'm buying it, though. I do think there's going to be a trade up. I don't know about how high it's going to be. Like Luke Walsh says over here, he says he thinks that the trade's going to be in the middle rounds. He doesn't think it's going to be necessarily the third or the 7th, but those middle rounds, the 5th and 6th. Seeing those move around.
We cannot trade a 5th round pick. That's where they excel. Well, you're trading away starters if you trade away a 5th round pick. Come on.
Well, maybe they're not trading around. Maybe they're not trading it away. Maybe they're trading up in the 5th round to get a little bit higher 5th round pick. That's probably what he's talking about. Because you're right. The 5th. If I was the 49ers, I just move all of my picks into the 5th round, because then you're going to hit on all of them. That's about that's their money round. That's where you look at the guys they drafted in the 5th round and how well they've done. That's their sweet spot right there for sure. So you look at us, I think we all have them trading up at some point or to an extent. Let's stick right in there though with this whole trading up, dealing with the draft. The 49ers are taking another 3rd round running back. Sterling, we're kicking this one off with you.
Yeah, I think if you look at the roster on paper, I think many fans would say, why? You've done it 2 years in a row, and then you went out and traded for Christian McCaffrey. You don't need a running back. But I could argue, and I don't think it'll be a 3rd round pick, but I do think, so I guess I'm selling here, but I do think that they are going to draft a running back and actually need to. I know fans love Jordan Mason. I like Jordan Mason. We haven't seen too much of him just yet. But my biggest concern is TDP didn't show anything really worth to get on the field. And Elijah Mitchell had just one of the worst injuries, or excuse me, one of the worst injury lucks of the entire year last year. Like, he was not on the field and even missed the biggest game of the season, albeit sort of Purdy after the first kind of drive there. But Elijah Mitchell, like, I love him, but he's not healthy enough to be the put in number 2 behind McCaffrey. You need somebody else back there. And I know many fans like Roshan, I believe it's Johnson from Texas, or Israel Abanikanda. Apparently he killed it from in his pro day yesterday, and many fans, including myself, were saying Kyle Shanahan's going to fall in love real quick here with this guy. And I think he should fall in love with him. He reminds me a lot of Raheem Mostert, but a 3rd round pick for a position you arguably have the best player at, I think you have bigger needs to fill, like a right tackle, maybe a safety. I just don't think a 3rd round pick is worth using on a running back this year.
All right. And that name that you just threw out there, man, I see. I butcher these things, but I'm pretty sure it's Abanikanda. Abanikanda. Is that how you say it? Yeah. The running
enough.
back out of Pittsburgh. That's a name that I heard yesterday for the first time, and then as soon as I heard it from Larry, I saw it all over my computer. So that might be a name. And I can't give my thing away yet. I got to wait. There's more people here. CG, you tell us what do you got? 49ers going to be taking the 3rd round running back this year?
I'm hoping that they don't do this route again, but it's kind of deja vu once again. Like, I'm hoping maybe they get one in the late rounds. So I'm trying to not buy into it, but the previous years they've been doing this again. And I think like you guys said, that Pittsburgh running back is who they might fall in love with. But if we want to wait to get a running back, maybe you get one in the 6th round, like my guy Eric Gray from Oklahoma. He's a receiving back. He can do it all. He was a transfer from Tennessee. I mean, I'm hoping, but it's never say never. This Niners team just likes to go high on these running backs, but I'm going to sell just to pray that we just stay away from the running back in the early rounds.
You're speaking the sell into existence. I like it. How about you, Johnny? What do you say? Buy or sell here that the Niners are going to take a 3rd round running back once again?
I would love to sell, but there's some things you can count on in life, like death and taxes, and Kyle Shanahan taking a running back in the 3rd round. But not this year. We're not gonna pick a running back in the 3rd round. I'm selling all the way. I'll do my best, John Lynch. I'm going to say, we have a room full of guys that are working their tails off, guys that have played at a really high level. We got Christian McCaffrey, who is as good as there is at that position, and Elijah Mitchell, who's played about as well as anybody can play, and 2 guys that we are really excited about, and Jordan Mason and Ty Davis-Price. And, we really like our running back room. And we feel very confident in those guys, that any one of those guys could step in and be the number 1 running back for us. And then they're going to turn around and draft one in the 6th round. I think that's what's going to happen. They love camp bodies at running back. And so, that's what I see. So I'm going to sell that, not in the 3rd round, not this year.
That was a hell of a John Lynch invitation, by the way. I am going to sell it as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep that up there. I'm selling it. I don't think they're going to take a running back in the 3rd round. I do think they're going to take a running back. And I will say, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be completely shocked if they take a running back at, say, with one of those. And the reason I say it is because I know, people love Elijah Mitchell, the big back and everything he was able to do in 2021. But this is a guy who just can't stay healthy. And the 49ers right now, I think, are in a mode where they really want to go for it. They seem to be really all in with a lot of the moves that they're making and the way they're talking. And I could see them maybe going after another running back. And I'm going to go back to the guy from Pittsburgh. This is the guy who Bonaconda is the guy who, from everything that I've heard, the people that have sold me on him are telling me he's got the speed of like a Mostert or a Breida, but the size of Mitchell. And that type of a player in this 49er system, I could see just, that's the stuff of like that's making Kyle Shanahan just drool right now. When he's sitting there at his office looking at the film, it's just coming down like this. He's got it. He's ready to go. He's all over that. So I'm going to sell it, but I would not be surprised to see if I'm wrong on this one, because the 49ers love to do that. And you guys we've all talked about, everybody's talking about how many guys they've drafted at this position over the last few years. It's why we have it as a topic tonight. All right, let's change it up a little bit. So we've been talking about mostly the offense, the draft and offense, and let's get this thing back to the defense. We're going to spend some time on the back end now. Secondary is the 49ers' weak link. What do you think, Johnny?
I'm going to sell that. I don't think that's their weak link. To me, just because of the uncertainty at right tackle, I'm going to say the offensive line to me is the weak link right now. And now we're looking at a team that could have been the first team to have a rookie quarterback start in the Super Bowl. This is not exactly a team with a lot of holes. So when we say weak link, we're not talking about like a position that is poor or a position group that is poor. And the reason why I love the way Tayshaun Gibson played last year, I think he played well above value. Hufanga obviously was at an all-pro level. Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward came in and provided that stability on the outside that we have been missing really since 2019. And then I think Diamador Lenore showed everything that you need to see as a number 2 corner going forward. I think he's just only going to get better. We have to remember that this was a kid who got moved around a lot his first 2 years. And as he was in one spot and was able to grow in the defense, that he was getting more and more comfortable to where he was allowing a lower passer rating against him than Mooney Ward was. So, can we really be upset with just running back with the same defensive backfield that we have, considering what we have on the defensive line now? I just don't see them as a weak link on this team.
CG, you're up next.
Well, I'm going to agree with Johnny on this one, Sal, because I don't see too much of the weakness of the secondary like everybody says. I mean, the only weak spot I've seen in the secondary is maybe Hufanga is missed on coverage at times, but I think the rest of it makes up for that spot. So as far as the weakest link, just like Johnny said it best, I think the right tackle is definitely the weakest link. And then I know this might be critical, but let's go on to the center spot too. So those are pretty much the weakest spot. As soon as we gel with that offensive line, I feel like it'll be pretty good. But yeah, I'm going to have to sell on this one.
Okay, so we got a couple of sells, and now it's up to Sterling to break the tie and see if there's another one. We got there, Sterling.
I guess for the sake of being different, I'll say bye. But let me explain, because yes, everything both of you said, yes. Like, Lenore came on great at the end of the year. He's a bona fide number 2. John Lynch even said he's a big part of our future going forward. That's why Emmanuel Mosley's arguably, or probably the reason why he's not here, right? Mooney Ward was great during the season. Hufanga, all-pro year. I know it fell off towards the end of the year, but again, had a great season for a second-year safety. My biggest concern, though, in the secondary might not even actually be the secondary itself. It might actually be kind of what they did in 2019, where it was you have Richard Sherman, you have an unproven Mosley, you have Jimmy Ward, who had a great year that year, but then you have Tart next to him, who he's an okay safety. He's a good safety here. Happy he was here for a long time, but you have to get to the quarterback. And what did they do this offseason? You got the best interior defensive lineman, but who's playing the edge across from Bosa? I like Clellan Ferrell. I like Austin Bryant. I like Drake Jackson. My question is, who else is going to be there? You have 3 guys who are unproven, but if they can find someone across from Bosa, and it might be one of those guys for all we know, it's going to drastically help that secondary. And while I do think Deshaun Gibson, getting older on a 1-year deal, had a great year last year. Like, you cannot understate how important he was for this defense to get turnovers and get the ball back for Brock Purdy and the amazing offense we had in San Francisco. But can he do it again? That's my question. It was a career year for him for a reason. He's in his early mid-30s. Can he do it again? I do think there are questions about that. I know he loves Hufanga and playing next to him. So if you're me or I'm John Lynch in the Niners, I find it imperative to go out and get and find that number 2 edge rusher to help that secondary not potentially take a step back next season.
All right. And you guys all make really good points. You know, Johnny, CG, they're both saying that Colton McKivitz, you are the weakest link. And same thing with Sterling. You're going on the defensive side on the secondary. I don't think anybody's right on this one. I disagree with all of you. And what I'm going to say is I think the secondary is better than they were last year. I think that you're bringing back all the guys that played really well at the end of the year. And you just added, I think, a better slot guy in Isaiah Oliver. I think that's an improvement. I think the secondary is better than they were a year ago in terms of the starters. Now you get into the backups, they definitely need to add some stuff there. I disagree with CG and Johnny on Colton McKivitz. I don't know. Again, Colton McKivitz is definitely the weakest link of the Friars offensive line. That's no doubt. He is the weak link there. He's going to be okay to hold on the fort for a little bit, but I don't know if he's the long-term solution. The two, they keep pumping up his performance against the Rams from 2021. And I think if you really watched that game in 2021, he didn't play all that well. I mean, I think Jimmy Garoppolo's ability to get rid of the ball before he got his head taken off a couple of times helped out McKivitz more than anything else. So for me, I don't think the secondary is the weakest link. If you're asking me what the weakest link of the Friars is, it's behind center. It's the quarterback position right now, especially with the fact that you don't know what you're getting back in Brock Purdy. I thought Brock Purdy was awesome what he did over the last 5 weeks of the regular season, the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. I know some people have said that he didn't play well against the Cowboys. I think they're full of malarkey with that. I thought he played extremely well, especially considering it was a big playoff game, tough opponent, all that kind of stuff. But we don't know what we're going to get out of him. And beyond that, it's slim pickings for the 49ers. I know we're going to talk a little bit about this position more in a minute, but I think the weakest link on the 49ers right now is at the quarterback spot. I think there's a lot of people that agree with me. This is why last year, around this time a year ago, everybody was saying the 49ers have the best roster except for quarterback.
Oh, Jack, you're going to get the Twitter guys coming after you now. I can already hear them. They're say Jack's a Trey hater. It's coming.
Hey, you know what? I do appreciate the Trey fans. They do a great job of talking about me on the spaces.
Controversial creates money right there.
Yeah, well, the funny thing
All
is,
right, Eric Bischoff.
The funny thing about it is, I mean, everything that I wrote about Trey Lance in the preseason and during the training camp last year was he said the same thing, and so did the head coach. So I didn't feel all that bad about what I was saying. And then you go back and you look at where we are today. I still don't feel bad about it. I don't think, I hope Trey Lance can figure it out. We're going to get into him in a minute. I should probably shut up at this point so we can get on to the next one. We're still staying in the secondary. Samuel Womack, he's going to be the breakout guy. What do you guys think? Let's go with CG. You start us off.
Man, I'm going to say sell because Isaiah Oliver is probably going to be the starter unless something changes. If some injury or some terrible competition-wise he doesn't pan out well, then maybe I can see Womack. But I'm going to sell because we signed Oliver to be that guy.
Okay. Sterling, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll buy it. I think what we saw last year early preseason in weeks 1 through 3 before he actually got benched and got sent to special teams, I think we saw the ability to go after the ball, be kind of that ball hawk-ish kind of guy who can get turnovers for your team. But also I do think that if someone does go down, let's say Lenore or Mooney Ward go down, Isaiah Oliver is likely the prime candidate to go on the back outside because he's been there so often in his career, albeit hasn't played amazing. So I do think that could open a door for Womack to slide into the nickel if Oliver has to go back to the outside. But I think so. I think if you look at the depth this team has, it's kind of just Womack and then Ambry Thomas and kind of nothing else. Maybe Dante Johnson's back after he recovers from the ACL. I have no idea, but like it's not it's not great. And so I do think like Womack's going to get a chance to play this year, where last year kind of got slid down the depth chart because he was so good on special teams, and they had 3 guys they believe needed to play almost every single snap last year. And yeah, I think so. He's versatile. He can play the outside as well, play nickel, but also I do think that he's going to kind of be the first next man up. And I think that benefits him, and his skill set definitely allows him the opportunity to become this, I guess you can say, breakout candidate this season.
I gotcha. That's a good one. How about you, Johnny?
I'm gonna sell. I just did not see enough from Womack last year. There was enough bad tape and not enough good tape that makes me really hesitant to say he would have to make a huge leap. I just don't see it happening. So I'm going to sell, and I'm going to say the 49ers, I think, I know they signed Oliver. I'm not sold that he was signed to be a starter. I think he was signed to be in case something else doesn't emerge there. I really, that's how I feel. The size of contract they gave him, I just don't see that as like, we're expecting him to be a high production guy at the nickel. I think he's somebody that is there to be able to be depth at both nickel and outside, which is something that they did not have last year. Womack was supposed to be that guy, and he was not that. So I'm going to sell. I don't think Womack has a breakout year.
Yeah, this is one where I do this, right? Buy and sell at the same time, because and only I can do that
Cheater.
one because I'm the
Cheater.
host. I get special privileges. No, but it's one of those things where you can kind of go both ways on this one, and I would lean more towards the guys that are saying sell here, just because where does he go? I don't think Sam Womack's role is inside. I think Sam Womack's role is going to be outside, and if we were doing this last year and we asked this question about Diamond Lenore, I think we all would have sold that too, because we'd seen Lenore go out and not play very well, and that Ambry Thomas was the guy that took that role last year. So maybe something happens where Samuel Womack has to step in. I seem to recall he had to step in against Atlanta when Charvarius Ward went down. He struggled in that game. Maybe something like that happens here in 2023, and instead of struggling like he did against Atlanta, all of a sudden he steps up and starts making some plays, and that's where we're all wrong. All of us who said sell here, that we'd all be wrong because of it.
Didn't he play late in the year as well and got burnt like on the very first play? I don't know if it was against the Cardinals, maybe. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it's just a figment of my imagination, but I feel like he played and filled in late in the year and got burnt on like the very first play he was in. It was like, oh, well, all right. Well, there's that.
I don't remember that. I do remember that Diamond Lenore got burnt like right. He had a rough week the week before, and so everybody was already mad at Diamond Lenore. And then like the first possession of the game for Arizona, they went deep on that. Yeah, and AJ Green posted him up and snagged it from him. But I don't remember that being Samuel Womack. The guy that I remember that happening with more last year was Ambry Thomas. It seemed like every time he came on the field, between Ambry Thomas and Jalen Moore, that's a rough day if either of those two guys touched the field for the 49ers last year in a regular season game for sure. All right, let's stay on the defensive side, and we're going to get into one I think here that's a little bit of fun. At least I think it's a good one considering where they are on that defensive line right now. Drake Jackson, he's going to finish the season with 6 or more sacks. Sterling, I think you're starting us off this time. Drake Jackson, 6+ sacks in 2023.
He'll certainly get the opportunity to have 6+ sacks. I don't think he'll get 6+ sacks. I want him to, let's say that, but I'm going to sell. I think that they're going to go draft an edge rusher. He'll be part of the rotation, but my concern is that what we saw last year, there was some really good early, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. His body couldn't keep up. And I think that's my biggest question about him. He has the physical traits you like, and that you would assume someone like him can get you 6+ sacks in the season. I do think he'll get there eventually, but I think it was Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch both said, like, look, he just wasn't ready to endure an 18, 17+ game season. And I do wonder that I know he's been at the facility getting stronger. I do want to see the body hold up, because if you can't play, you ain't getting sacks. I think that's my biggest concern of, has he finally gotten his body right for the NFL and not in college? Because if he has, look out. But if he hasn't, I have to sell.
All right. You got the sell over there from Sterling. Let's take this one over to Johnny. Johnny, come on now. Bring it home. What do you got?
I'm gonna buy just because the rookie wall was a real thing and he hit that hard. But the raw ability is there. He's got the measurables. He has what he needs, and he's going to be the person with the least amount of attention on him. So if you're looking at somebody who has the easiest, or path of least resistance to the quarterback, it's going to be Drake Jackson. They're going to find ways to utilize that to get him on some stunts, to get him on some twists, and ways to get him to the quarterback, much like we saw with Samson Ebukam or Charles Omenihu, or Arden Key before him. I think there's going to be chances for him to get in there and get some sacks and opportunity sacks where Bosa's doubled, Hargrave's doubled, and Armstead's pushed in the pocket, and he's just able to get in there. And I do also the way that Wilkes runs his defense, he runs a lot more blitzes than D'Amico Ryans did, and I think that's going to leave more chances for one-on-ones and more chances for busted protections. And if you're going to bust a protection, you're not going to bust it towards Bosa's side. So again, I see this as partially hoping that he in believing that he will ascend a little bit, and then also looking at the landscape of that his job will be easier this season than it was last season, and so I'm gonna buy. I believe he's gonna get 6+ sacks.
I like it. Let's go, CG. Your turn now. Here we go.
Well, I'm buying into it because year 2, these players break out. So it's one of those opportunities. Like you said, he'll be the least attention guy. So that does leave more snaps for him. And if the Niners were not confident with him from the get-go, they would have not signed those other guys like Colin Farrell and Austin Bryant, because they must be really confident with Drake Jackson's ability. I mean, he hit the rookie wall. But I'm going to go on the limb. I'm going to say he's going to reach the 9.5 sacks or 10 sack type season. I think he's going to break out. I think he's going to get some of those opportunities to create pressure. And he's going to have an easy path to get to the quarterback because they're going to focus on Bosa. They're going to focus on Hargrave, and Armstead's going to make it very easy for Drake Jackson to have a breakout year. So I'm going to go on a hot take and say he's going to have a 10 sack season.
Hey, that is a hot take. That is a hot one. Now we're talking about Sam Womack being the guy that wants to break free. Now you're coming in with a guy right here in Drake Jackson. Now I don't necessarily think you're totally when they hear you say that. I'm right there with you guys, and I think that Drake Jackson is going to get 6 or more sacks this season. Based on a couple of their thoughts, I think that they can get it out of him. That's why they let Samson Ebukam go. Ebukam is about a 4.5 to 5 sack guy here anyway. I think they can get a little bit more out of Drake Jackson. And I think if you look at the way Jackson got his sacks last year, they weren't just beating guys around the edge. Those were more just sticking with the play.
You're muted, Jack. You're still muted, buddy.
You're muted.
Yeah, I know my thing got all messed up. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
All right. So this technology. Anyway, I'm going to start over. He's going to get 6 plus sacks. Drake Jackson, guy who has the speed to be able to get home, but he's also the guy that when you look at his sacks last year was mostly off of having to really work. And I think you throw in a guy like Javon Hargrave and what he can do. You also have Nick Bosa on the other side. You're going to have all those other guys creating pressure, which is going to allow him to be the guy that ends up getting home when that quarterback starts to scramble around. I think that's really where he's going to get him. So we're going to say 6 plus for Big Drake. I wish I knew a Drake song. I'd probably sing it right now. Just got to try to make up for my misconnect here. I feel like I'm a 49ers quarterback missing my connection with my mic over here.
Oh,
Dang, I know. I'm a hater. I get it. I know. But I like it. I do like CG. He went hard on that though. Coming to 9 to 10. That's good stuff right there. I like it.
Laugh at me then, Kevin. Laugh at me then, and appreciate it later.
That's right.
he's calling out the comments.
That's right. That's right, Kevin. You take that. Woo! There you go. All right. There we go. 49ers have lost faith in Trey Lance. This is the big news coming out of the owners' meetings out in Arizona Monday, Tuesday. Monday, 49ers Twitter kind of lost its mind a little bit, and then it just kind of completely blew up on Tuesday after Kyle Shanahan's conversation with the media in the morning. 49ers losing faith in Trey Lance. I'm going to start off with you, Johnny. Let me know. What do you think here? 49ers losing faith in Trey Lance?
Well, let's just say you said that Niners Twitter lost their mind on Monday. They never had it. I mean, come on. Look, there was nothing that was said this week that would change that infers anything that they have changed their stance on Trey Lance at all. I'm going to sell that completely. No, I don't think they've lost faith in Trey Lance. And just because Brock Purdy plays unlike almost any rookie that we've ever seen, doesn't mean that Trey isn't a knock on Trey Lance. Like, the one thing that was fascinating for me in watching all the film was, and I've watched a lot of rookies over the years, is that when you watch Brock Purdy, you forgot you were watching a rookie. From the execution of the plays and the way everything was going, you really felt like at no point was I sitting there going, okay, there's potential here. I would like to see that. It just felt like you were watching a 4-year vet. It really did. And that speaks more about Brock Purdy than it does negatively on Trey Lance. And so when you say what happened with the team, they're scoring 34 points a game with Brock Purdy. What more do we want? What more do you need to see? What more would Brock have to say to then say, well, it's not his job? Absolutely, it's his job. It would be insane for them to say it isn't. It would be completely unfair to every player in that locker room to say that it doesn't matter that a guy comes in and we have the highest scoring offense in the league during the stretch with him, but we drafted a guy with 3 first-round picks. That is not being genuine as an organization to say that whoever puts it on the field best plays. So nothing they said to me says that this is a knock on Trey Lance. So have they lost faith in him? Absolutely not. I think they still believe he will be the guy that they want him to be, and they're sitting in a great position where you have 2 guys that you really believe in, and they brought in Sam Darnold because we saw what happened once they lost 3 quarterbacks, that they needed as many quarterbacks as they could. They had 3 quarterbacks start games for them that meant something. They need at least 3 quarterbacks they believe in. Bringing Sam Darnold in isn't anything about against Trey Lance. It's about they have been burned by this every single year. They lose multiple quarterbacks to injury. So this is more about just protecting yourself against, history repeating itself than it is against Trey Lance. I think they believe just as strong in him now as they did a year ago.
All right, CG, what do you think here?
Man. So signing Sam Darnold was kind of a question mark, but now they're splitting first team reps. Like, I'm kind of questioning about it, man. It's like me being put in a hardware place, man. Like, are they really that confident with Trey Lance? Because it seems to me they're treating him like a running back. And the more I start to think about it, I have to face reality, man. It seems like I have to buy into it, man, until the naysayers prove me otherwise, bro. I really believe in Trey Lance, but it doesn't seem like they have the most up confidence, because if that's the case, why are you splitting first team reps with Sam Darnold? You kind of get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. All right, Sterling, what do you think here?
Do you have the buy and sell that goes both ways again? I think it's kind of one of those, because
fine, I'll let you have it. I'll let you borrow it.
Thank you. But no, I don't think San Francisco has technically lost faith in Trey Lance. I do think they see a quarterback that they believed in when they drafted him. Someone that has all the tools you want, that has the read option stuff, has a great arm. accuracy issues are still there, but more reps he gets, hopefully he will improve. That's always been the conversation of he needs more reps. Once that happens, he'll become the quarterback they think he will eventually be. But like Johnny said, it would be disingenuous to look at guys like Trent Williams and Fred Warner and George Kittle and say, hey, we have Brock Purdy, who, yes, is a big question mark because of the health of his elbow, but we have a guy who won essentially every single game he started in outside the Eagles game. We're not going to play that guy at all because he wasted 3 first-round draft picks on Trey Lance. That you cannot do that to guys saying, hey, you're going to waste the prime of my career. This could be my last chance for a Super Bowl, and you're going to waste that, or potentially waste that by not starting Brock Purdy. But I do think that Trey Lance is kind of on the back burner now because I think San Francisco sees Brock Purdy, as they should, as their franchise quarterback. And now I think it's like, well, what do we do with Trey? I don't think it's they don't believe in him. I just don't think that they necessarily need to believe in him because they have Brock Purdy in the room now. Trey Lance is playing for a fifth year option this year. Really, he really is. And I don't think the Sam Darnold split reps is that big of a deal. It's a good question to have as to why that's happening. Maybe it's because Trey's ankle isn't okay and they're trying to figure things out with that, or his foot's not okay. Maybe that's it. But Jack, you and I were in camp last year for a short time together. I met you in the bathroom and I said, how's Trey look? And you said, oh, he's looked okay. There's some accuracy issues. That's not going to go away unless he's a completely new quarterback this offseason, which I hope he is. Like, there's nothing wrong with having 2 star quarterbacks in your room. The difference is I just don't think Trey's in the front of their mind anymore because Brock Purdy has now overtaken that job. And again, it's like, what do we do with Trey? We have our guy now in Purdy, and Trey's still in the room. It's kind of awkward again. Like, it's like Jimmy and Trey again. Like, Trey's our guy. Jimmy, sorry. Now we're here again. And it's like, we have 2 quarterbacks that the fans are kind of torn on once again, but the franchise obviously wants one more than the other, or at least is going to try to play one more than the other. And the starting quarterbacks in San Francisco, it can never be easy. But again, I don't think they have lost faith. I just think they're kind of like, hey, Trey's also here too. That's great, but Brock Purdy's our guy.
I don't mean to jump in, but just there's you got my mind thinking a little bit of just, if I'm the 49ers and I'm looking at how difficult the transition was from Jimmy Garoppolo or from Trey Lance to Jimmy Garoppolo and how much the offense had to change going from there and the style of offense. If I'm the 49ers and I'm looking at, okay, if Brock Purdy's my guy and I'm going to be building around him, who makes it an easier transition to from him if he goes down? Is it going to be to Sam Darnold or is it going to be to Trey Lance? Who's the easier transition to QB number 2? If that has to happen, because they've been through that, and so I that kind of makes me wonder if that doesn't play into the splitting of reps.
That's a good point.
It kind of gives me that question mark a little bit because, the way they treated Trey Lance, they treated him more like a runner than they did at a quarterback. So, he has to get more of the reps throwing the ball, but they're running him around like he's RG3. And I'm hoping I'm wrong otherwise, but it just seems that's what it's projecting to be. They see Brock Purdy as the guy. He's going to recover. It's going to take some time. I'm really hoping that Trey can overcome this, but bringing Sam Darnold just tells me that they really like Sam Darnold.
I'm sorry. Luke Walsh wins the comments. He says Shanahan goes through quarterbacks at the same pace Spinal Tap goes through drummers. We're just waiting for one to spontaneously combust.
Oh, that's a good one, Luke. But see, now I was going to say really quick that I totally remember the first time I met Sterling. Completely different than that. I
not the bathroom.
What he said that what he said there in terms of me saying, in terms of the what I thought of Lance's performance during training camp last year, that sounds like pretty much like me. But the other part, I thought it was on the sidelines, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. As far as when it comes to buying or selling that the 49ers have lost faith in Trey Lance, you're having a really good conversation with this so far. I'm selling it. I don't think the 49ers have necessarily lost faith in Trey Lance. And I listen. Here's the thing for me. I've heard John Lynch talk twice now. I heard him on a podcast shortly after the time that he met with the media altogether at the scouting combine. Listen to him. He was much more open in a podcast I did shortly after. Then I heard what he said on Monday. He said the same thing both times. And then you hear Kyle Shanahan talk, and they're both saying the same. They are picking their words very, very carefully. And this is one of the things that when it comes to Kyle Shanahan and the quarterback spot, I've really come to appreciate is he doesn't give you shit. He doesn't tell you anything. He kind of gives you little bits in here, in terms of the big stuff, but he says just enough to not pigeonhole himself in any direction. He did that when Trey Lance was first brought in back in the 2021 camp when he was asked about, Lance and Garoppolo splitting reps and there being a competition. The way that he worded his response to that made everybody think that there wasn't going to be a competition if you read the words very carefully with what he said, he left himself all kinds of room for there to be a competition, which is exactly what happened, which is exactly what he told Albert Breer last year around training camp time about the competition that took place between those guys. I think that they still like Trey Lance. I do think that the door is open for Trey Lance to take this job, for Trey Lance to become the 49ers starting quarterback. Johnny, I know what you said in terms of Brock Purdy, and I agree with you. As a rookie, as a 7th round draft pick, forget the 7th round draft pick. Throw that out. As a rookie NFL starting quarterback, what he did last year was off the charts. The problem right now is we don't know what's going to happen with his arm. There's a lot of positive things that based off of the more recent UCL injuries that he could be okay. But I don't think the Farmers have totally given up on Trey Lance. But here's the thing. Trey Lance can't come into training camp this year and be anywhere close to the Trey Lance that we saw last year. If he's that guy, then he might not even be on the 49ers roster when they get to the 53-man cut down. He needs to come in and he needs to play at a level like we saw from Brock Purdy. Can he do it? We saw him do it for about 2 quarters against Houston. Other than that, we have not seen him do that. I'll even take myself back a little bit further. In 2021, in training camp of 2021, he looked like that guy the first 2 weeks. That's why when John Lynch went on the radio around the time of that first preseason game, he said that Lance was pushing Garoppolo because he was doing that at that point. And then from that point on, it's just been a steady flat line and a little bleep up. And it just think of a heart monitor that just the guy's just right there or at the edge. That's all it's been with him since then. And he's going to have to make a big change in his performance if he's going to take this job. And I understand there's a lot of guys that are really big Trey Lance fans. You guys have been selling this guy really hard since the 49ers drafted him. It's time to put up or shut up. That's all I got to say. He's either going to do it or he's not. And
I mean, I support the guy. It's just I don't see how they are not believing this guy. It's just there's just different signs of it. Like Brock Purdy kind of gave him the type of quarterback they want, and he did exactly what you wouldn't expect from the last pick in the draft. Like he outperformed the expectation. Trey Lance was the 3rd pick in the draft. You kind of have that narrative. I mean, I want to see Trey prove otherwise. It's just there's a lot of doubt.
Yeah. Well, I think if you are the 49ers and you're Kyle Shanahan, the reason you doubt Trey Lance, if you do doubt him, is because he hasn't performed. He's been okay. The biggest thing with Trey Lance is you went into this last and he was going to be the dude. He made it for 5 quarters. That's the biggest thing for me really quick, just kind of going off of this topic for a second, is the people that are just really upset about this and saying that the 49ers have screwed up the quarterback position and screwed up Trey Lance. For me, I don't get it. And the reason why I don't get it is because they went in, they gave him opportunities in year 1. He didn't take the most of it. So that's fine. So they went into year 2 and they gave the guy the keys to the castle. They didn't bring in anybody to even compete with him. So it was the Trey Lance show, and then you had, Nate Sudfeld, but there was nobody there to push him, and he wasn't very good in training camp. I don't care what anybody tells me he wasn't. And the coach said it. Trey Lance said it. I don't know what anybody else that's a big Trey Lance fan needs to hear, other than I get the fact that you like the guy and you want him to be good, but wanting a player to be something doesn't mean that that's what he's going to be. And I think that's where I differ from some other people. Is I see the potential. I get it. I saw it when I watched the film. If you watch my film breakdowns, you can see when you can start to hear him when I was starting to get excited about the plays he was making at North Dakota State and how they'd fit into the 49ers and how this would work with Kyle Shanahan. It just hasn't translated. And we'll see. Maybe he's got a chance. He's going to get tons of reps. And I know there's a lot of people who are saying that Sam Darnold is this and that and the other thing. Sam Darnold is way closer to Trey Lance than he is worse than Trey Lance. Let's just put it that way. You watch these two guys play on film, at least what I've seen of him a little bit here in Carolina from last season. He's doing all the stuff that they've asked Trey Lance to do in San Francisco. Anybody want to say anything?
I mean, in the end, I think some of what you see is that people want Trey Lance to be Josh Allen, and I don't want Trey Lance to be Josh Allen. I want Trey Lance to be Trey Lance. The best thing for the 49ers is for Trey Lance to succeed. That doesn't mean that you have to then go say that the 49ers are burying this guy and ruining this guy. Okay, in the end, players have to, in this day and age where the majority of the offseason players are working on their own, players have to be responsible for their own success and to be able to do the things. He needs to be able to do the things that you need from an NFL quarterback. Okay, he needs to be able to do the things that we need in this offense, and a lot of that is going to be operating that short passing game. That, I mean, people, I know when people think of Trey Lance coming in, they think of the deep ball and they think of Danny Gray and the deep ball connection and wanting to see that added into the offense, but you can't gain that at the loss of the ability to attack the short over the middle and intermediate over the middle levels that Kyle Shanahan loves to attack and stress to set up his run game. He loves to attack linebackers and box safeties so that they are slower to react off of their to the runs, to the wide zone, everything. So he has to be able to operate that to work Kyle Shanahan's run game, and that is everything in this offense. And so, for me, he's got to figure out how to improve that area of his game. That has to elevate, or he will be what it's the always of what could be. And that doesn't mean that he's going to be Josh Allen and going bombs away 60 yards down the field, 10 times a game. He needs to be able to do what Kyle Shanahan wants him to be in this team. He's not fit for this.
I'm not going to call anybody out in my comment section, but real quick before we move on to the next topic, I am going to say that I keep laughing and I'm chuckling. You might see I'm not laughing at what you're saying, John. I'm not laughing at any of the other my guys on my show are saying. I'm laughing because there's a guy in my comment section who last year kept yelling at me and telling me how good Trey Lance was going to be, telling me how wrong I was about Jimmy Garoppolo, telling me all these things, and let's just say he's not a big fan of Trey Lance anymore, which is it's just kind of. I mean, this is one of those guys where he's a really good dude, and that's why I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just going to say it's funny. You do this enough, and you have people that yell and scream at you, and it's funny when every once in a while they come back the other side. So that's a good one. I love it, and we'll see. Like I said, I tweeted this today. If Trey Lance is the guy. If Trey Lance is the guy that everybody has been selling me, all the Trey Lance fans who are upset about the fact that he has to compete with Sam Darnold, all the Trey Lance fans who are upset about whatever they're upset about when it comes to Trey Lance on the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, if Trey Lance is the guy that you've been trying to sell everybody for the last 3 years, I don't know why you're worried, because he should win the job back. All right, last one. And this has been a hot topic really for a couple of weeks now. The 49ers with Brandon Aiyuk, and I'm just going to throw this out here. Brandon Aiyuk will be traded. Let's start off with Sterling, and we'll go around the horn. Sterling, Brandon Aiyuk's going to be traded.
Do you have an even larger sell sign? Because I don't understand why this is even a conversation in regards to it being a possibility. I get it. Fifth-year option, contract coming up. I'm seeing Chiefs fans say, yes, we're going to trade for Brandon Aiyuk. It makes sense for both teams. I'm sorry. No, it does not make sense for San Francisco to trade, or Brandon Aiyuk, excuse me, off what is his best year. He's an ascending receiver. And look, I think it's more likely, like there's a reason Deebo Samuel signed a 3-year contract, not a 5-year contract. I'm not saying it was foresight, but I do think that what Deebo Samuel does, albeit it's very hard to replace, I do think that contract gives them an out to keep Brandon Aiyuk over Deebo Samuel. And if Brandon Aiyuk continues to ascend, and Deebo Samuel, albeit was hurt last year, continues to kind of do this, I think in another year, we're going to see Brandon Aiyuk get the big contract extension, and Deebo Samuel's going to be gone, or at least on a smaller deal. I love Deebo to death. But Brandon Aiyuk at this moment, right now, while they do very different things, Brandon Aiyuk is the better pure receiver. And with what Brock Purdy did last year, if he is indeed the quarterback, and if even, let's say it's Trey Lance. Trey Lance and Aiyuk's chemistry was unlike any other in training camp, which was the hot topic we all heard about, right? If Trey Lance is your guy, you're not going to trade his number one receiver, the receiver he has most chemistry with. You're not going to do that. Like that. I don't know why this is really a conversation in regards to, like, it doesn't make sense for San Francisco. And I know other teams might want him. That's a good thing. Doesn't mean they're going to trade him at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. So it's a hard sell.
Yep. CG.
You're muted.
Oh, well, I'm going to sell because why would you want to get rid of your other best pure wide receiver? Deebo is more like an all-around gadget player. He gets hurt at some point. So I think there's going to be, at some point, maybe down the road, you might be surprised. Maybe Deebo's going to be gone, and then you want to give Aiyuk the actual contract. I mean, he's a good route runner. He's gotten better. He was ascending. I just don't believe the trade talks. I see a lot of teams putting the rumors, and I'm just thinking it's bogus, man. Like bogus. Like I'm just gonna say it's not for sale, man. We're just gonna sell it away. Just get rid of the issue, man. The rumors, it needs to go. It needs to go. But it's pretty much like I'm just selling it because I don't buy into this crap. I mean, if you get what I'm saying, like they're not going to get rid of him. They value him so much. Maybe he just wants more targets. Maybe he wants to be the number one guy.
What about you, Johnny?
I'm a Sterling. Can you put a giant? I mean, let's just make the entire screen sell. I mean, I can't say sell hard enough. And look, if I'm the Chiefs, I would love if I could trade for Brandon Aiyuk, but San Francisco ain't doing it. Okay, we have to remember that Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk do not play the same position. Okay, they are wide receivers, but they do not play the same position. That Brandon Aiyuk is your X receiver, he's your split end. That Deebo Samuel is your flanker. They are different receivers. Think 1998, Terrell Owens and Jerry Rice. Okay, they were not the same position. And Brandon Aiyuk is your guy that he is going to be away from the tight end. He's going to be facing more. He's on the line. He has to be on the line. That's a big thing because now he can be pressed. So he's your guy to beat man coverage. He's your guy to go up against one-on-ones that you can rely on. I look back to the Miami game. Okay, Miami game, we ran the same passing play 3 times. It was you run a little spot concept with a swing pass added in with Juszczyk going into the flat on one side. It's 4 receivers on one side, and you have Brandon Aiyuk on a quick slant on the backside. When Brock Purdy saw straight man coverage, it was Brandon Aiyuk on the slant. Okay, and we ran that play probably 16, 17 times with Brock Purdy, and every time it was straight man coverage and there was no defensive end or hook dropping onto that side. Brock Purdy was going to Brandon Aiyuk because he was winning on that slant every time. I see man coverage, I'm going to Brandon Aiyuk. He's your man coverage guy. Deebo Samuel is not your man coverage beater. He's going to be working the concepts against zone coverage with the tight end. He's going to be working things with George Kittle there, and he's also going to be in that wide back role that you can use to create mismatches in the box. They do not play the same position at all. And Brandon Aiyuk is also your best blocking receiver. So when we say, he's your guy that if you need somebody that can beat man coverage, that will bust another team out of man coverage, that's Brandon Aiyuk. If you need a guy that can block as better than any other receiver on the field, that is Brandon Aiyuk. He was on Brad Graham's show, and he said it, no block, no rock. Okay. That he had some of the best blocks that I have ever seen from a receiver last year. So, the value that he brings to this team, I don't see it. Now, is he going to be a big numbers guy? That's not our offense. It just isn't. It's we pass to set up the run, and at most we're going to be a 50-50 team. So I don't see it. The sticking point, I think, might be between Aiyuk and the team on the contract. That's the only place I see it, but that's why you pick up his 5th-year option. So you have him for this year and you have him for next year. I think Brandon Ayuk's going to want to get a contract like Deebo Samuel. Will the 49ers pay him that with the production they're getting? But he's also going to look at them and say, well, I'm only getting the production I got because I'm on a run first team. That's the only place I see a sticking point. I think the two sides will find a way to make it work. But I do not see him getting traded, not this season. The only way that happens is if that contract situation goes very far south. But even then, I think they let him walk because you're going to get a compensatory pick back from him if he walks anyways. So, and I don't think he's going to be a guy that garners a first-round pick back. Nobody's going to give a first-round pick and then a big contract for Brandon Aiyuk. I love the guy, but I just don't see a team making that kind of a trade. But I'm going to sell this as hard as I can. Like, there is no way Brandon Aiyuk gets traded.
All right. Now it's my turn, and I'm going to. So this is one of those. I almost need to use the back and forth one here, but I am going to say in terms of Brandon Aiyuk being traded, I'm going to buy this one. I'm going to go a little bit different though, because Brandon Aiyuk's not going to be with the 49ers much longer. The 49ers, John Lynch talked about using the 5th-year option on Brandon Aiyuk, and I could totally see the 49ers doing that. The interesting piece here is the 5th-year option doesn't have to get picked up until after the draft. So if they don't utilize it prior to the draft, I think there's a possibility that he is on the block and he's going to get moved during this draft. If they place the 5th-year option on him, he will get traded in 2024. He is going to be the second coming of DeForest Buckner. I agree with what you guys are saying, that as far as the talent of Brandon Aiyuk is there. And the 49ers could afford to pay Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel for a couple of years together. I know Samuel's contract is coming up, going to explode next year, but the way that the 49ers typically do these kind of deals is they build in plenty of room for themselves to be able to redo those deals and push money out and keep it. Think of a little bit of kind of like what they've done with Eric Armstead, and all their big money guys are similar in the way what they do with them in terms of they kind of bloat the contracts up with salary, smaller bonuses, so that they can then slide money into bonus. And those guys are actually making just as much money as they would. Their cap hits are low, but they're making a ton of money. And I think that they could do it. I just foresee the 49ers looking at this and saying, you know what, long term, we're not going to pay two wide receivers top wide receiver money, which is, I think, what it would require them to do. And so I think Brandon Aiyuk becomes the odd man out because although he's a terrific wide receiver, he doesn't do all the different things that you get out of a guy like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel in 2021 was part of the reason he was so good, was he was getting the ball down the field a little more. Last year, they used him more as a gadget guy. I think that really hurt his numbers a little bit. So in terms of Brandon Aiyuk getting traded, again, this is kind of one of those buy or sell kind of things. Like you guys, I'm selling that he's getting traded now, but I'm buying that he's going to eventually be traded by the 49ers. And I think he gets through 2023 because, like I said early on in the show, I think the 49ers are all in for now. But beyond this season, I think things get a little interesting, especially over. And I know we're talking about Brandon Aiyuk, but pay attention to what happens over there at left tackle too, because there's a possibility that he might not be here for long haul. Trent Williams was the guy who said at the end of the year, if you remember, there were some questions as he was going to be coming back. He can retire next year and save the 49ers a boatload of money, because it would be if they do that, and he retires, they wouldn't retire him until after his paperwork wouldn't go in until after June 6th. So they'd be able to free up almost $20 million in cap space with a Trent Williams retire. It's actually about $13 million. So
Jack, can I ask you, do you see a wide receiver in this draft that could replace Brandon Aiyuk?
Do I see a wide receiver? There was man. See, I don't have my draft notes in front of me. I did have.
Sorry, I dropped it on you. I know.
I didn't. That's all right. I should know, but there's a couple of different names that I've seen kind of getting floated around the 49ers of guys that they've talked to. So unfortunately, I don't have the name right at my fingertips like I should. I'm unprepared.
No, it's all good because
there's that kid from Ole Miss, that Jonathan Meagle guy. Like, I heard he's a good blocker. He's got the speed. He's got the playmaking ability. That's another guy I've heard about, but I don't think he's the typical replacement for Aiyuk right away.
So I just haven't seen anybody that I think is going to be at Ayuk's level. I think there's a handful of solid receivers in this draft, but I don't see anybody that's a top tier receiver. I don't see anybody that I would feel comfortable with at that X position where you want your number one receiver. So that's just, I wonder with that is, are they waiting to pick up that fifth year option to, as they do their homework on these guys and figure out, is there a possibility for a red shirt replacement?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there's a few guys out there that they could do that with. When I was looking at the draft, and I was had a conversation yesterday with everybody's favorite new YouTube sensation, Larry Kruger. I had a talk with him yesterday over on his channel, and he talked about a guy that I think he just has like a Rolodex in his head as he's talking with all these different guys in the draft and everything. But as I was telling him, I think receiver is a spot that you can see the 49ers go after. I think people are kind of sleeping on that right now because they have 5 guys that are pretty well locked in, but you still have, you're not sure what you're going to have. Javon Jennings, this is his last year in San Francisco. Javon Jennings, he's going to price himself out after this year because he's no longer under the 49ers control. Ray McLeod, I think, is a guy who probably doesn't come back. So I think the 49ers are going to draft a guy. Maybe they're able to get a guy that's a solid enough where they can replace Brandon Aiyuk. So that's the only reason why I think after 2023 he's gone, but I could be wrong. I admit it. I admit every once in a while that's one of the fun things about this. We like to do all this stuff and we throw out our wild predictions and
like 10 plus sacks for Drake Jackson.
Hey, if that happens, that's fantastic. Hat off to CG for that call out.
I had different hot takes. Like, I even said Burford would be the starter right off the bat, and people thought I was nuts.
Well, you are a little nuts, but I think you
true.
might be right on that one too, because I do think that he could be the right starting. When you said that, we didn't know that John Feliciano was going to become a 49er, so that kind of changes some of the reasons that people would give for that to happen. But I look at it and I think there's lots of fun moves. And here's we always look at the draft, right? And we think we know who the 49ers are going to take. This is the group of guys, and no, they've got to trade up to get this guy. They've got to trade up if they're going to get this guy. And then next thing you know, the guy's like getting drafted in the 3rd round. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. For me personally, my favorite time of the year is when the guys hit the field, because that's my favorite time. I know some other people really enjoy the off season because you can come on here and just spout off all kinds of goofiness and not have to worry about being wrong. But I like the season best because it's just I like watching them practice. I know some people get bored with practice, but I love watching the guys at practice because it really tells you so much about what's happening. Anyway, Sterling, where can people catch you? You got your own channel?
I technically do. I haven't posted in a long time since the season's been over. Been taking a break. All the craziness of Niners Twitter has kind of worn me out over time, but season's starting again, draft starting again. The channel is 49ers Access. It's an audio podcast, a video podcast. You can check it out on Twitter and on Instagram as well. We're just talking Niners all the time. Also on 95.7 The Game radio station. I'm hopefully doing Niners pre and post game. Hopefully post game again this year. It's gonna be fun. Hopefully, I'll see you in the bathroom at camp again this year, Jack. We'll have a great time.
Well, hopefully we run into each other on the sidelines because it just seems like a better spot to talk, But hey, who knows? Maybe it'll be in the spot right there next to the media room like last year.
There you go.
CG, where I know where we can find you.
Yeah, CG Ruthless 49ers Talk. It's nothing but 49ers Talk on that channel. I've interviewed some NFL draft prospects. I've interviewed in the past Spencer Burford, which it's one of my best interviews. Let's see. I do the NFC West Network. We have a podcast for the division. My main channel, I interview wrestlers. I do a little bit of other sports, but on my 49ers channel, I have a lot of ex-NFL players who come on my show sometimes. So it's a pretty cool channel. If you like all 49ers content, I give you the quick posts. I do some hangouts, and every now and then you'll see some NFL players or some draft prospects who come on my show.
Make sure you guys check out CG. Ooh, yeah. Did I do okay with that one, CG?
Yeah, dig it. No. But you guys need to subscribe to CG Ruthless Sports. I will be brutally honest. You come into this channel, you're going to get realistic takes, whether you like it or not. Booyah!
All right. All right, Johnny. Johnny, I know we can find you right there. It's your name, huh?
Yeah, it is. So you can find me at Johnny Dale's Football Academy on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify. I've been doing kicked off a podcast starting in the playoffs this year. I haven't been doing the film breakdowns as much as I have since the offseason one. There's not as much meat on that bone. Two, I've been working on a Javon Hargrave and Steve Wilkes video for a while. And by working on it, I mean, I watched a little bit of tape here and there and have started to cut things together. But I'll be honest. I was doing a breakdown video and then a scouting video on the opponents during the playoffs this year, and I was near burnout. I was putting in about 40 to 50 hours of film work a week on top of a normal job, and it was rough. So I've been going at a slower pace this off season, but doing the rocking the podcast during the off season here. Went to the Senior Bowl, and we've been having some fun swapping with guests on shows and stuff. And so you can find me there at Johnny Dale's Football Academy on YouTube. That's the number one place you can find me. And there, if you didn't catch me during the season, you can find review videos for every single one of the games we played. I try and make them within 20-25 minutes. I think the longest one I had was 24 minutes, but try and bring it in and teach the whys and hows of the game. It's what I'm really into, and looking at that from that perspective. And I was fortunate enough to be on Jack's show during the season this last year, so it was a lot of fun too. But yeah,
absolutely. No, we'll be doing it again. I think we'll get each of you guys on it at some point now as the season goes along. And everybody knows how to find me. You're right here already. Make sure you hit the like button before you leave. Like Luke says right here, hit that like button like Ronnie Lott used to hit Dallas receivers. That'd be fantastic. Make sure you hit the like button. Also hit subscribe if you're on your way out before you leave, especially if you aren't already subscribed. Then hit the little bell notification so you don't miss anything when we go live. But keep it locked in here. Inside the Farmers with Jack Hammer, bring you all the 49ers breaking news and updates as they happen. Got some fun shows on the way. We're going to be keeping doing these roundtables. We're going to be a Thursday night staple. Different group all the time. Got to keep it fresh, keep it popping, like the kids say nowadays. But got some good stuff happening. I've got just actually set up a show today that's going to be coming down on Tuesdays in the afternoon that you guys are going to have to check out, because it's a little bit of a throwback to something that I did when I first jumped on YouTube. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk to the guys. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. Sterling, CG, Johnny, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight. Take care, everybody. We'll be talking with you soon.